It's the Tune Under Pod. I'm Jack, and with me today again is Mark in a slightly drier Brisbane. How you doing, Mark?
Somewhat drier, still slightly clammy and humid, but at least the floods are hopefully starting to subside a bit. And we've had a bit of rain today again, but short, sharp bursts now rather than 4 days straight. So take the winds as they come.
Just the one thunderstorm a day. It's
just
nothing,
the
thunderstorm. But you deal with that. We've got Dimi in Melbourne. Dimi, both of your teams have won this weekend, so you'll be in pretty high spirits, I imagine.
Definitely, it's one of those jackpot weekends that you get very rarely. So when they do happen, it's happy days. But I'm doing well, tired because it's at 2:00 Sunday morning kickoff, which is not a great time. But when we're winning, stay up all night and talk about the tune. Who cares?
Absolutely, and like we were saying just off air before, when you win, you've got that adrenaline. So the game finishes at 3:30, but realistically, you're not getting to sleep till 4:30. So it does just make it that bit better, a bit more worth it when you do win. So Newcastle are on a roll here, and the Tune Under Pod is also on a roll because yesterday we got our 2,000th audio download, which is a good milestone for us. We did the watch along with Lee, Craig, and Bobby, and that got over 2,000 watches alone. So that's really good for us. We're on a roll. Newcastle are on a roll. Newcastle are 8 games unbeaten now. We've picked up 18 points from a possible last 24, won 5 games out of the last 6. It's absolutely incredible that we're saying this after the way we started the season. We've actually got more points after 26 games this season than we did last season now. So we've got 28 points this season to the 26 points we had last season. When you haven't won your first game until the 15th attempt, that's absolutely remarkable stat, really. We're going to look at the league table a bit more in depth later, but we're now 14th in the league, 7 points clear of Burnley in 18th. And the 4 teams above us are all 5 points ahead of us, and we've still got a couple of those to play at home. We beat Brighton for the first time in the Premier League at the 10th time of asking. And it was only Brighton's 3rd away defeat of the season. So it was a really big result, especially with these 4 tough away games we've got in a row coming up now. So, Dimi, I'm going to ask you this question first. Are Newcastle going to qualify for the Champions League?
Are we still a chance? I think we're still only... I saw somewhere on socials that maybe it was the Conference League places. We're 14 points off it. Let's say not this year, but who knows? Who knows next year?
What you went on last week when I asked Mark and Craig this. What do you put this down to? This resurgence, this new run. It's incredible.
Well, I've always thought that sport is probably 80% played above the shoulders. So you can tell with a bit of confidence and a bit of new blood in the team who haven't got that Steve Bruce scar or the previous regime scar, what it does. And you can see Burns come in, look brilliant. Target, Trippier when he was fit, Bruno starting to integrate. So a few fresh faces, a few new looks changes the vibe. And especially when you win 1 or 2 games in a row, winning becomes a habit, just as losing became a habit. So I think all it is confidence, and Eddie's got the players believing again in themselves, and long may continue.
When I first got here, I was watching AFL, and I was really struck by what a game of momentum that is. Like in the game, like you can almost see it change within the game, and it's really quick. Like you can have one team going on top, scoring 4 or 5 goals, and then the other comes roaring back, and it's really difficult to grab that momentum back. So with Newcastle, it's been over the last few months, it's been more of a slow turnaround, and I've kind of said before, it's been like a ship, a tanker, slowly turning around. But now we're on the turn. It's going to be very difficult to stop us easily. Let's just have a look at going to get the form table up here for the last 8 games. Maybe we will qualify for the Champions League, Mark, because we're in second place here, sandwiched in between Liverpool and Man City. Talk us through this form over the last 8 games.
It's been absolutely insane. I mean, I know we've discussed in previous podcasts where you've made the analogy to this big tanker doing a slow turnaround, but it kind of took us a while to just lift the anchor up out of the water. So, a few weeks of Eddie Howe actually doing effectively a preseason, getting the players up to match fitness halfway through the season certainly doesn't go down on most managers' resumes as the must-do first thing through the door. But yeah, once that first win went in, it was like you could see the players lift. It was like the belief was there that all their hard work that they had been putting in, and they had been getting some of the performances pre that first victory on the board. And I think I've made this point before, where the Man United game, you could see afterwards they'd put so much effort into that game, and when it was like 1-1, and they probably should have and very much deserved to win that game based on overall play. And I know we've seen on social media today some of the Brighton fans actually saying a little bit along the lines of, just because we had possession, it doesn't necessarily mean we deserve to win the game. It's like, the defense played well. So, but you could see that at the end of that Man United game, the players were just so dejected. It was just like, are we ever going to win a game? It's like, it was just this, it's like, well, we've thrown everything at them, and the kitchen sink as well. And a few bottles of milk and stuff sort of banged off the wall, and we still couldn't get a victory. So, what do we have to do? But as soon as that first win's gone on the board, it was just, yeah, this is great. We're getting reward for our effort. We're getting reward for our sort of training ground sort of changes, and the belief was there, and they just sort of grabbed that with both hands and just moved on with it. It's been really good to see. You can see that their heads don't go down anymore as well. Even when we've gone the goal down, they're like, no, let's go. We've still got it in us. We're still not scoring a lot of goals, but our defense has been absolutely impenetrable at times. It's been great.
Yeah, and we've kind of started having different kinds of wins now as well. So I remember when we beat Burnley, we just needed any kind of win. And then since then, in this little run of 5 wins in 6 games, we've had different kinds of wins. We outplayed Everton. We outplayed Brentford, albeit they had a man sent off. And we really dug in. We dug in against Aston Villa. They didn't really offer much going forward. And yesterday was a really hard match to watch at times, because we're going to talk about it more in detail, but we didn't have much of the ball, albeit Brighton didn't actually create much from open play either. So it was one where it was very much relief at the end, and we did well, I think, to hold out for 35 minutes of the game after they scored their goal. I don't think anyone thought we were going to hold on. So fair play for that. So let's get into the game. The teams, Newcastle were unchanged. Any surprises there, Dimi?
There was one surprise. I did think that Mankia would come in. I'm not sure if it's more hope at this stage that we're winning and Eddie doesn't want to change the lineup. But I really thought that another week of training, Mankia comes in. He's clearly the second right back in the squad. So that was one surprise. But besides that, I didn't think ASM would start. I thought off his long layoff, impact sub would be the best role for him.
Yeah. It's What about you, Mark? What did you think about the starting 11?
I think Howe's nailed his colours to the mast, so to speak, where he's going to reward players for playing well. So we've been winning games, so why break up a winning formula? I think maybe today we looked, this morning, we looked a little bit tired. We didn't sort of have that same vigor, but I give credit to Brighton on that front. They played the ball around us a lot more than what other teams have. They played things out wide for us, and look, I think it's probably more down to just we've had an off game, but the squad itself, I think, kind of picks itself. We'd all like to see Bruno get more minutes, but you can't complain at the guys in midfield at the moment that are holding down those spots, and everyone else is kind of picking themselves at the moment.
Yeah, we've got those 4 games coming up. We've got 3 away games in the space of a week. I'm pretty sure, and we're going to preview the Southampton game later as well, but I'm pretty sure Bruno is going to start getting games, and I think it probably is about time that happens as well. in terms of Kraft, because he gets a lot of criticism, and like I don't mean to always be the one who's like, I don't love Kraft, you know, I don't think he's very good, but I don't I don't like it when he gets like, because he tries hard and he does his best. So I think that has to be acknowledged, and he does get a lot of grief. But it is right that teams are targeting him, you know. Him and that right hand side of him and Murphy are kind of seen as a weak link. I'm surprised myself that Manquillo hasn't come back in. I can only maybe think that his injury did look quite bad at the time, and they said it was going to be 3 or 4 weeks. So maybe he's just been taking a bit of time to get up to speed. And then, in fairness, Kraft has been part of a defence that's been pretty good, albeit it's mainly been down to the centre backs and Target. But talking about them, Brighton were in a 4-3-3 formation, so it was a bit unclear whether they were going to go 5-3-2 but then Lamptey was playing like attacking right midfield, which I was quite surprised about. So it seemed like they'd kind of done that to try and maybe match up a bit with what we were doing. And they were getting quite a bit of joy down the left-hand side, particularly with Cucurella going on to Kraft. So we had quite a sloppy start to the game. I think the first 10 minutes or so, we were kind of sloppy. We were well behind. We weren't keeping the ball very well at all. And then all of a sudden, we're winning 2-0 out of absolutely nowhere. It definitely was against the run of play. But Mark, what about that first goal then? And we're going to talk a bit about the role Chris Wood's played here as well, I'm sure. But yeah, what was your kind of thoughts up to that point, and then the goal that we scored at Fraser?
Yeah, I mean, we were under the pump, it's safe to say. I don't think we had a lot of the ball, and that continued for the rest of the game. But it was just literally out of nowhere. Chris Wood turned his player, grabbed the ball, slotted a perfect ball through for... I think the commentator said it was Willock, but it wasn't. It was Murphy. Murphy basically powered through, just pure pace, got him through on goal. Did his usual of hitting the post as opposed to scoring, and I think that's probably about 4 or 5 times he's hit the post this season. So he just can't buy a goal at the moment. But luckily for us, Fraser busted a gut to get forward, managed to get onto the rebound, seemed to kind of pick the only place in the goal that was the hardest to score off. It was like, where's the defender at? I'm going to kick it there, as opposed to the big open bit at the other side. But hey, went in. Yeah, just absolutely brilliant. But yeah, Chris Wood, he's not scoring at the moment, but that goal was purely on him. Perfect bit of play in midfield, dropped deep, grabbed the ball, turned his man, slotted a perfect ball through, and you know, couldn't have asked for more from him from that. To be honest, it probably epitomized his game, where he didn't really do anything goal threat wise, because we did play quite deep. We were under a lot of pressure, so he didn't have that chance to push up, but he controlled the ball and he put himself about and he made himself a nuisance as much as he could, which, you know, no other striker in the club's going to actually be able to do that role for us. So I think that win and being able to see that game out is probably like set up by those early touches from Chris Wood as well, where he just carried that on.
It's a tough gig, isn't it? Because he's playing up front and you've got Webster and Dunk, who are like big lads, you know? And Chris Wood's not afraid of a battle, but it's happened in pretty much all of his games where he's been pretty isolated up front, and he's being asked to do a kind of an unselfish job for the team. And his arrival has coincided with this unbeaten run. So, Dimi, what's your thoughts on Chris Wood, and is he going to start getting criticised if he doesn't start scoring, or is that not going to happen until we start losing games?
Yeah, I think that latter point's right. We had that conversation with Bobby and Lee the other day. We said, look, as long as we're winning and his goals aren't needed, won't be an issue. As soon as we're not winning, especially if he's missing chances, then he will come under some criticism. I think his overall game has been quite good for us. He's held the ball up probably every single game really well. I mean, today his turn and through ball was sensational. I mean, I can't see Dwight Gale doing that. So there's a huge positive that Chris Wood did that. So, I mean, we can't just judge him on his goals. He is a striker. He's there to score goals, but the way we're playing is a dynamic sort of quick paced counter attack. not always keeping the ball and bringing everyone up the pitch to suit Wood in terms of crosses and long balls. So as long as he's doing his job and helping out the teammates and holding the ball up, I think we'll be happy. And especially if we're winning, obviously that's not going to be a problem if he's not scoring.
Nobody cares, do they? If we're winning,
who cares? Exactly right.
And that's right. Like I've said a few times, he's here because he literally is not Dwight Gale, and we spent 25 million on him to do this role. And he won't be in the team probably long term, but he's going to be a decent option for a year or two for us. And he's an honest professional with a really good character, and that's what the kind of player that we targeted in January. And it's paid off so far. So I've read a few things about how he's part of kind of the leadership group in there as well already. So you can't put a value on that kind of intangible impact that people can have. I think with Trippier, it was very obvious because of his performances on the pitch as well as his obvious leadership. But Chris Wood is quietly going about that with the same kind of attitude. And I was really pleased to see him get that. He should have got the assist if Murphy's shots weren't attracted to the post. But then it's a good job for us that little wee man was following up to tuck it into the corner. And then he went and got 2 minutes later, he went and got himself an assist. Dimi, what about this goal?
Fantastic goal, fantastic cross, and fantastic header. I think bit of dodgy keeping by their mate Sanchez at the near post. I'm pretty sure it wasn't the hardest shot to save, but it was a good header, and it was all about the cross. To be honest, though, it was that pace on the cross and the whip on the cross. It meant that it gave Cher a chance to attack it, and Cher nailed it. And who would have thought 13, 14 minutes in, we're 2-0 up. We've barely touched the ball, and we're 2 goals up. We're thinking, fuck, how good are we? How good are we? We haven't had the ball. We're 2-0 up.
Yeah, it was. Cher's actually got 8 goals for us now, all in the Premier League. I remember he scored that really good one against Burnley. So he can score a goal. As I was saying last week, he's an attacking defender more than a defending defender. But he's been doing the defending part pretty well lately as well. So we absolutely lavished praise on Cher and Fraser last week, didn't we, Mark?
Yeah, I think both of them. I mean, we still don't know exactly why Cher was up that far on the pitch, but in open play, it's just like fair enough from set pieces. But yeah, I think they're both playing so much above where we all thought they would be, even with a new manager. I think I think even the most optimistic fan was going to be struggling and to see those players, as well as Joe Linton, Shelvey, those sorts of players playing at the level that they have been. And maybe they didn't all hit the heights that they did previous games against Brighton, but they're still doing a great job in midfield for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And the rest of the half, it was kind of how the rest of the game went. So Brighton had a lot of possession. We really couldn't keep hold of the ball. I think a couple of the midfielders, Willock probably had his weakest game for a while. He wasn't passing the ball very well. Even Joe Linton gave it away a couple of times, which has been unusual for him lately. The midfield looked tired, which playing against Brighton, you probably are going to seem tired because they're very lively. And they always seem to have the extra man as well. Cucurella kind of, I don't know whether it's just because he's got really crazy hair, but he was very noticeable. And he had a lot of the ball down the left-hand side as well. So the rest of the half, kind of followed that pattern. But then just before half-time, we could have scored 2 more goals. Dimi, what was your kind of thoughts on those chances we had? It was Big Dan Burn first, wasn't it? And then it was Murphy from that corner, and then Willock towards the end as well.
Yeah, well, I was saying to myself before that corner, because I was focusing on Burn, I'm like, surely Big Dan Burn's not going to get on the end of this one. And as the corner came in, you could see him wheel around the back and thinking, this is a free header. And I think he got excited too, thinking, look how much space I'm in, because that was a golden opportunity for any professional, let alone a 6'7" centre-half. You'd hope he'd get a stronger head than he did on that. But the second one, Murphy's one, the Optus Sport coverage didn't catch it.
Yeah.
All of it. We just heard the crowd get loud. We're thinking, what's happening? And then you can see Murphy scuff his shot. But on the replay, that one, he had to square it. Fraser was wide open. Murphy was on his left foot. Not that his right foot's any stronger, but he's on his left foot, his weaker foot. Fraser's wide open on the penalty spot. That had to be cut back, and that would have been a 3-0. So it was a massive missed opportunity, and definitely at least one of those should have gone in.
It would have been. It really would have been a bit of a travesty as far as Brighton are concerned if they'd have gone into that.
Yeah.
If they'd have gone into half-time 3 or 4-0 down.
Yeah. If we were 3-0 up at half-time, it would have been absolute robbery.
The half-time stats, we had 7 shots and they'd had 9 shots, but 3 of those shots for us were right towards the very end of the half, and we'd only had 35% possession. So I don't know about you, Mark, but I was feeling quite relieved at half-time that we were going in a couple of goals to the good.
Yeah, I think I would have taken that, snap someone's hands off for that before the game. Even it's totally against the run of play for the first 2, but as I said, I mean, we could have had 3 or 4 easily, and it's like against the run of play, yes, but it's about how you take your chances. I actually think Dan Burn was too tall for where the ball was for his chance. It kind of came at him, and it was like below head height, so he was stooping to try and get the ball in. It was just like, it's like, okay, fair enough. He is 6'7", so would have been maybe better off someone like Chris Wood being on the end of that, and wouldn't have had to duck down quite as much. But yeah, golden opportunity. And then as Dimi said, it's just like the next thing we know, it's just like, there's been a chance, and it's like, what? Hey, what? It's like a goal kick, and we're getting a replay. So yeah. It would have been great. I think Murphy's due a goal. He deserves one because he has actually been playing really well. And as we said, he just keeps hitting the post. Maybe they should get training, and they should use slightly smaller goals just for him, so that when he gets on the pitch, he's just like, oh, this is so much bigger.
It's surely harder to hit the post than it is to score as well.
He'd be class at the crossbar challenge.
Yeah, the one against Man United, he was so unlucky. He bent it, and it would have put us in front as well, and it hit the post, and that was when Miggy, there was a good save from De Gea from Miggy. So he's like, I think having him in the team, because he does do his share of defensive work as well. So it does kind of bring a bit of a more predictable shape and maybe a better balance than when Maxi's there, even though Maxi's obviously got that attacking edge. We got into the second half, and then it was followed the same kind of pattern. We were sloppy. We were giving the ball away, and then Lewis Dunk scored what appeared to be a free header from a corner. Mark, do you know who was supposed to be picking him up there, and do you think maybe Dubravka should have done better?
I think Dubravka was flapping a little bit a couple of times in the game. I think he probably needed to command his box a little bit more than he was. I mean, from what I remember of the replays of that, he kind of seemed to almost get blocked out by his own defender, and he just never ended up getting to the end of being able to jump up and get onto the end of that ball to knock it away. There was talk that it possibly should have been an offside call before that anyway. So, we ended up conceding from a corner that wouldn't have been given had they scored, because it would have been a free kick for offside. And, it's just one of those things where VAR's not conspired against us, but it's just one of the quirks of that particular system where, it's like, well, no, it's free play on. They obviously missed the offside. It's gone out for a corner. And then inevitably, when you get corners given against you that you shouldn't get, you're always a little bit worried that you're going to end up conceding from them. And unfortunately, we did. Could have been better defending. I mean, it was literally an open shot at goal, but
Yeah, you do feel like when it's that close to the goal, maybe the keeper should be coming to claim that. But then, I don't know, I think it might have been Chris Wood was supposed to be marking him, and he just ended up getting a free run. But there was a warning sign for this, because Duffy had a chance in the first half. Where was it, Duffy or Webster? It was Duffy, wasn't it?
Duffy.
Who had a chance in the first half where he missed him, and it was almost a carbon copy. Should have put that in from a corner. So it's quite funny that Brighton have got all of this possession and all of this intricate play around the box, but the biggest threat comes from swinging the ball into the box towards big, brutish centre backs. What about Dimi then? How are we feeling for the rest of the game then? Because there was still 35 minutes to go at this point. How are we feeling? How was the rest of the second half for you?
Not good at all. It was painful second half. Very painful. I was praying that we're gonna get a counter-attack opportunity with Maxi to seal it, which we did get a lot of them, and we couldn't put that finishing touch to it. I was just worried that it seemed all day their set pieces were causing us real trouble, and Gross, their midfield, was putting in some terrific balls and with a lot of pace, and Dubravka, like Mark said, didn't look too confident coming out for the ball. So I really felt that 2-1's not going to be enough. They're going to have another couple of chances, and I thought we needed a third goal. Luckily, we did it in the end, but definitely wasn't an enjoyable last half an hour to watch.
That really wasn't. And it was a bit different from the Villa game because Villa just offered nothing going forward, whereas Brighton, although they weren't creating too many clear-cut chances, they were still having a lot of the ball around our area. I don't know about, I really just felt like Bruno, it was the time for Bruno to come on and take some tired legs off, and he didn't come on until the 78th minute. Maxi was a good threat on the break, but Mark, did you feel like Bruno, it does feel to me like it's inching towards he's going to have to start soon because he's so good, and we need somebody who can keep the ball and look after it a bit better and let us recycle possession.
Yeah, I think he just looks so much more assured on the ball, in possession. He can pick out passes for fun. Never looks rushed. Never looks stressed about what he's doing. I think, and in credit to the players that are in there at the moment. Yes, we've kept them in because they've been playing well, but they've put some work in. They've grafted in that midfield to get the results that we've got, and I think it's probably just catching up with them. They maybe need a little bit of a break here and there, and need to get that pressure taken off them. And against a team like Brighton as well, you've got to tip your hat to them. They passed the ball around really well in that game. I think I saw like one of the stats was they completed like 87% passing accuracy, and we were down at like 63% or something. So I think that tells you everything about just being able to hold on to the ball. And, Bruno's going to be that sort of player that is going to retain that ball for you. He's going to be able to create chances going forward as well, because he one through ball where he put Maxi through, and it was just like, oh yeah, a little bit more on that, and sort of Maxi back at full tilt, then I think that's going to be a goal, or at least a chance on goal. Disappointing, but yeah, he's got to get in at some point.
He certainly is confident. And in the 93rd minute, he was in our box. He was doing little bits of skill. He got fouled, but oh my God. I felt like you kind of trust him to do it, but you're still like, what? Just don't do that. Just kick it. Get rid of it.
Just don't do that.
Just don't do it. Doesn't matter where. Doesn't matter where it goes. Please don't do that. So here's some of the stats we held out. You can see that from the possession stats. Brighton had 67% possession, but they only had 4 shots on target. They had 15 shots to our 10. There's the thing about touches and passes there. So they had almost double our touches, and they did have double of our passes. So that was very much the stats back up what we were seeing in the game. One stat which could be quite surprising is that we actually had a higher XG. So XG is a bit of a controversial stat that people don't like sometimes, but we had 1.55 XG to their 1.28. I think I'm not like on the face of it, that sounds surprising. But then when you think about those 3 chances that we had towards the end of the first half that were actually good chances, and I can only really recall Dubravka making a couple of saves from open play. There was a really good one from Welbeck in the first half. So if I was a Brighton fan, I'd feel quite frustrated that the team has got so much ability to keep the ball and to pass it around and look pretty, but they're just crying out for a top quality striker or a top quality creative midfielder who can actually create some chances and, take them clinically. Dimi, this is a bit of a difficult question, but do you think we deserve to win this game?
Marginally. Although Brighton, like you said, had a lot of the ball, they didn't create much at all. It was basically set pieces was their best chance to score against us. So if you take that into account, and take into account that Murphy's got virtually an open goal if he cuts it back to Fraser at the end of the first half. BDB had a free header from about 2 yards out. Maybe they had one with Duffy, so that cancels each other out. But because possession doesn't equal results and doesn't equal chances. So we were sitting quite deep, especially in the second half. I think we sort of maybe we made the change at halftime and Howe thought these guys can't break us down. Let's sit a bit deeper and hit him on the break when Maxi comes on. But it definitely didn't seem like the spot, unless it was a set piece, it definitely didn't seem like they were opening us up every 2 minutes. So I'd have to say that marginally for our graft, we deserve the result.
Yeah, the defensive work we put in. Do you think, Mark, it would be fair to say that our defense deserved to win the game and their attack didn't deserve to win the game?
Yeah, I think that's fair. To be honest, I think both. I think their defense didn't really keep our forwards out. I think our forwards were probably more guilty of not taking their chances that they did create. And I think that harps back to like one of my points from the last podcast I was on, where I still think we're missing just that little clinical edge up front. I think defensively we're really solid now, but we just don't have that last little bit of quality in the final third still, which hopefully we'll address in the summer if and when we stay up. But our defense at the moment is looking so solid. And it's a breath of fresh air because we're not doing it in a panicked way. And even though Brighton had loads of possession, it wasn't like we were like frantic all the time and diving at balls. We looked composed in defense, and Dan Burn's a huge part of that. He just looks like nothing phases him. The ball comes near him, he deals with it how he needs to deal with it. He doesn't look fast, but obviously at 6'7", it doesn't take him many strides to cover the ground that he needs to. But he just seems to like resonate confidence to those around him as well. So I think he's just been this huge rock in the defense for us. And Kraft, I think, he didn't put too much wrong defensively today. I think most of my criticism for him was giving the ball away going forward, where a lot of our attacks broke down with him. But defensively, I thought he actually did okay. Shah, I think, has always been capable of the odd little sort of Titus Bramble moment, but he's actually been really solid of late, and Target's slotted in and looks like he's been playing for us for years at the top level. So it's just been really good to see that defense gel the way it has.
Yeah, they look like a very well balanced unit, don't they? You've got two left footers on the left hand side, two right footers on the right hand side, two defenders who can pass the ball comfortably, but who can both defend as well. I don't think anyone saw this defense being this good at this point, especially when Trippier came in, looked so good, and then got injured. So it has been the foundation that this run has been built on. And Eddie Howe has obviously been learning something in his time away from the game, which has been definitely to our benefit. So let's have a look at the league table, and then we'll have a talk about man of the match. We're still in 14th then, so it is still very much nosebleed territory. Top of the mini league, of the bottom 6 or 7 teams. Burnley lost 4-0 at home to Chelsea, which was a big result for us. Everton have got 2 games in hand. I think they play today or tomorrow. Leeds lost as well. Brentford beat Norwich. So, Dimi, that's looking pretty good now. Are we allowed to stop worrying about Burnley now, or do I have to keep panicking about them?
I'm not worried about Burnley, to be honest. I'm more looking at Southampton in 9th, thinking a top 10 finish is not off the table the way we're going at the moment. So, look, to be honest, Burnley had a good run a couple of weeks, or 2 or 3 games in a row. They were scrounging those 1-0 dire affairs, but that can only take you so far. And I think, especially with Brentford's result this morning, I think Burnley's going to find it difficult to get on a run again.
Yeah, you're looking at Mark.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting where Burnley's now on level games with us, so we're not stressing about them having like a million games in hand and not knowing what's going to happen in that what if moment. But you look up and you're looking at the likes of Brighton, where 5 points off them with a game in hand. We're 5 points off Crystal Palace with 2 games in hand. So if we can get results in those two games that we've had postponed, we could leapfrog Crystal Palace, and it's like, yeah, keep the results going, keep the confidence up. We're not going to win them all. We're going to lose some games. We've got some tough fixtures, but I think we can start to ease the pressure a little bit. I think there are some teams in some horrendous form below us now, and it's hard to see some of those teams getting enough points to jump above us. Never say never, but it is starting to look at the point of like, well, who can we finish above and where can we actually go from here up the table? I think we're all starting to get that confidence now.
Yeah, and we've got Palace and Leicester to play at home as well, so there's no reason why we can't pick up wins there, and then we'll be reeling them in even more. It really is incredible when you look at this compared to where we were after the Man City game, or even after the Man United game that we drew. You just wouldn't have seen this happen in a million years. So, and like I said before, we've got more points at this stage now than we did last season at this stage. So, I've given Eddie Howe enough love lately, so we'll leave that one for now, but I'm sure we'll return to that later in the season. The league table is looking very, very nice indeed now. So let's keep that going. What about a man of the match then? Mark, I'll come to you first.
So I think we're all probably going to be in agreement who it was. I think if you look at the players that really did have an impact on the game, I think Fraser's worked really well. Obviously scored a goal, got an assist. He was probably my man of the match. But you put it down to a lot of the other players kind of didn't quite hit the heights of the previous games, and a lot of that was down to Brighton controlling the ball and controlling midfield a lot more. But Dan Burn at the back just looked rock solid. I'm going to probably be different and go for Fraser just because I think he came off and he was just run ragged. He put so much effort into that game and tried to get up to support the forward. I'm going to go for Fraser, even though Dan Burn was a very, very close second.
Goal and an assist, you can't argue with that. Dimi?
Yeah, for me, it had to be Dan Burn. I mean, we did a lot of defending that game. They had, like we saw, nearly 68% of the ball. There was a lot of set pieces, a lot of balls coming in, and his command of the box, his block. I mean, how many goal-saving blocks has he done since he's been here? I reckon he's done at least 5 or 6. It's sensational, and I mean, I don't think he can play this well every week, but while he is, let's give him the love, and you can see the passion that he plays with. He absolutely loves playing for the shirt, loves playing at St. James's Park, and really means something to him. So every tackle, every win that he has on the pitch, he's celebrating. So it's great to see. And for me, his command at the back was integral. So man of the match.
And he, it's like Wood and like Trippier. He's got the character for this situation. There was that moment at the end where he went over. It must have been his dad and his brother, and he jumped over the advertising hoarding and gave him a big hug. But that's a real memorable game for him against his former club. I agree. Dan Burn, I think, for his first half performance alone, he was definitely my man of the match. And I did want to just give him a bit of love. So we've got a little bit of a profile here for him, just to have a little look at his career, because it's been quite unorthodox career, really, for somebody who's 29 and who's only really getting the profile he's got now. Best thing about him is he's got the same birthday as me, albeit 6 years later. So May the 9th, good day for me and Dan there. His career, so he was with Newcastle as a youth player, and then he did what a lot of players do when he got released, and he went to Blythe and Darlington, local football clubs. And from there, he was at Fulham. I think he played in the Premier League a little bit for Fulham. He's had a couple of loans there. He was at Yeovil and Birmingham, and then he went to Wigan. So these are not like big clubs or anything, and they're kind of between the lower reaches of the Premier League and the Championship. He had a decent spell at Wigan where he played 87 games, and then he went to Brighton. So he moved to Brighton when he'll have been 25 then, and he's played 74 games for them, and really kind of did establish himself in that period. And now he's come to Newcastle. But I think, somebody who's that good on the ball and who is that noticeable because of his height, I'm a little bit surprised he wasn't I suppose maybe playing for lower profile clubs has kept him off the radar a little bit. But I think for 30 million spent on him, to bring a guy home like that, I think it's absolutely fantastic business. And the best thing about it is the fact that he keeps on getting in photos next to Ryan Fraser as well. So whenever they've said that, they're doing it on purpose now. So whenever they're in the photos or anything, he kind of deliberately goes next to Ryan. So it's like he's leaving his son out or something like that. So has anyone got anything else to say about Dan there before we move on to the Southampton preview?
I think he seems like we're getting maybe 10%, 15, 20% more out of him because he's this local lad and he's finally got his dream move to Newcastle. He just seems to be loving every minute on the pitch, and you can kind of tell that this is like a dream come true for him. But he just seems like such a nice guy as well. And there was loads of stuff on social media. There was a big thread from all the Brighton fans that he went out and had a drink with them in the pub after the game and was sort of like, they were all offering to buy him a drink, even though he's literally just been spearheading the defense that beat them. And they're still kind of, totally understand why you've gone. We miss you, but good luck. And it shows that the respect's there. It shows that the fans appreciated him at Brighton, but don't begrudge him his move to his boyhood club. So I think he just comes across as like a nice guy who's just loving life at the minute.
Yeah, there was a lot of nice comments on that post about him, and that was probably unusual in these days of football. Maybe it's because Brighton have got nice fans or something, but.
You wouldn't think so, given that we just nicked their director of football as well.
I know, yeah. We're trying to replicate whatever they've been doing, but but Dimi, a word for Dan. You've already talked a little bit about him.
Yeah, I think the fact that no one's picked him up, I think you're right. He's probably been on a lower profile club, which is not getting the publicity over there. I mean, Wigan isn't a massive club, all due respect to Wigan, and Brighton have only recently been a Premier League team. They were a Championship and League One team for a long time. So I think him himself as well, starting to establish himself and feel confident at this level. So he might have never had the chance, or he clearly had never had the chance to play consistent football at the Premier League level. You can see now he really believes that he belongs, and he feels that he is a Premier League player. And by all means, the fact that he's a local lad is just icing on the cake, and long may it continue.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. All right, so we will be back after this short break, and we're going to preview the Southampton game because it's on a Friday morning our time. So we're not going to get time to do it later in the week. We're going to do it now. All right, so we've got Southampton v Newcastle at St Mary's Stadium, which is a Thursday night kickoff in the UK, one of two consecutive Thursday night away games, which just seems like a crazy scheduling. I don't know if they're getting back at us for postponing these two games in December, which caused a lot of people to be very upset. But then in between those two Thursday games, we've got Chelsea away, which is on Sunday night, Monday morning our time. So, and then because the Palace game has been postponed because of their cup run, we've got Spurs away after that. So we've got 4 away games in a row. So it probably is a good job we've been picking points up and winning games, because it's not going to get any easier from now. I don't know, Mark or Dimi, have you had a chance to kind of watch much of Southampton lately, or what's your sense of what their strengths and weaknesses are? Who wants to go?
I admit I have not watched any Southampton games. I've seen a couple of highlights here and there when you're watching the goal previews. So I'm kind of going into this one a bit blind. And I know that's really bad, and probably should know a little bit more about stuff while we're doing this podcast. But realistically, no, I've literally not really kept on top of them. I know they're kind of not really setting the world on fire, but they're kind of ticking over. They're beating teams that they feel like, probably should be beating, teams that we've beat recently, but not really putting any upsets on the board. So, it's going to be, the fact it's an away game as well, I think is always going to make it hard. But, realistically, I don't know what we're getting ourselves in for. You
mean you haven't been up in the middle of the night watching Southampton as well as Newcastle?
That's bad. No, I didn't even watch Newcastle live.
Jimmy?
So I'm a bit sicker clearly than you guys. I have watched a bit of Southampton. Mainly, I don't know why, but mainly due to there's two players that I really like at Southampton, and I really want us to sign them in the summer. One is James Ward-Prowse, and the other one is the defender Salisu. I think he's an absolute quality defender. So, I mean, especially recently, Southampton they've picked up their form. They play quite a dynamic style of football, and they've got that sook of a manager who's got them playing well and got them playing a little bit progressive, and they've got quality up front with Shea Adams as well. So it's not going to be an easy game. And that also they got that loanee from Chelsea, I think Borja or whatever his name is. He's got a good goal record as well. So it's not going to be an easy game, but definitely a game that we can get points from, and we shouldn't be afraid of. But there is definitely quality in that team, and I do worry about that little midfielder James Ward-Prowse against John Joe. I think this might be the game for Bruno to come in.
Yeah, Ward-Prowse is one of those players that you kind of, when we had the takeover, we immediately think of who were the best English players that don't play for the big Champions League clubs. And you've got him and maybe Connor Cody as well, who are playing at a good level for clubs like outside of European places. And so I could easily see potentially a move for him coming, but it wouldn't be cheap. Let's have a little look at the last 8 games for Southampton then. So they drew with Spurs, and you can see they've mixed the formation up a bit as well. So they've had 3-5-2 or 4-4-2. They drew with Spurs. Looks like they lost to Wolves, drew with Man City. It's a pretty good result. Beat Spurs, I remember that one. Beat Spurs 3-2 away. Drew with Man United away. They beat Everton and Norwich at home, which anyone can beat Everton and Norwich at home, really. They're not very good at the moment. And then last night, they had they got absolutely hammered by Aston Villa, who were a team that we beat fairly comfortably in the end. So, yeah, it's quite difficult to predict what might happen in this game. If you look at the head-to-head from Newcastle, so since we got promoted again, we have only lost once to them, and that was when we lost 2-0 in 2020. We went on a run where we beat them 3 times in a row, which was good. So I just remember when we got relegated, Southampton used to just beat us all the time. Sort of, we'd just go to St Mary's and get beat 2 or 3-0. So we've actually got a pretty decent record against them, and we would have beaten them this season already if it wasn't for that very late VAR. Well, it was the correct VAR decision, but at St James's Park to peg us back to 2-2. Does anyone know if Dan Burn and the other players that we signed are actually allowed to play in this game? Because we signed them in January. Because we signed them in January.
I don't know. Like Hasenhüttl was making his thoughts known on that, wasn't he? So I don't know if anything ever came of that though. I've never heard like any definitive like, no, you're definitely not allowed to. But realistically, I think every single Newcastle fan hopes that Bruno or Dan Burn scores the winner in the game just to wind him up and see what his head will explode on the sidelines or something.
It's not fair, is it, Dimi? Why are we allowed to play players that we signed in January?
I know. We might as well call back Jamal Lewis and call back Kieran Clark as well, just to make it fair for them. We'll go burn out Clark in. How about that?
Burn out Clark in, yeah, that would just make it just to be fair to them, because I mean they weren't allowed to buy players in January, I don't think, were they? Was there a rule?
Total freeze. Total freeze.
All right, so let's assume that we are allowed to play our January signings. What do we think about the team for this then? I think we've got 3 away games coming up in 7 days. It's going to be pretty tough. We've had a very settled system and a settled team lately, and it's been getting results. And Eddie has been vindicated and justified in his team selections. It's not like earlier in the season where he had kind of absolutely no margin for error, where we were losing points because we were playing Darlow or because we were playing Kieran Clark. We've talked a little bit about this already, but I think, and I was thinking this through the game yesterday, I think it might be time for Bruno. The midfielders looked tired yesterday. Every time he comes on, he's obviously got that quality. he's not going to be. He understands a little bit more about what the Premier League is now, in his minutes that he's had on the pitch and from watching it. He's been training with the team now for 6 weeks or so. I think it's hard to say that someone should be dropped because of the form they've been in. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it would be a dropping somebody. It's just squad management. Eddie's big on his sports science, and also he's very big on planning against the opposition. So he'll be taking that into account, the system we're going to play in each game. But Mark, I think Bruno should be starting potentially instead of Willock, maybe Willock or Shelvey, whoever's less tired. What do you think about the chances of Bruno starting in this game?
Yeah, to be honest, I want to see us make 3 changes. I think Bruno has to start. I think we need more control in midfield. I think the midfielders that are in there need a little bit of a rest as well. So I think some squad rotation in midfield, the midfield 3, certainly. I think they've put so much effort into getting those games victories and in wins and losses and no losses, sorry. But if you look at kind of what Bruno brings to the squad, I think you've got to put ASM back in as well to run onto his through balls. And I'd like to see Kraft replaced with Manquillo as well, just to give us that little bit more stability down the right-hand side. Swap Fraser to the right. I think Fraser and ASM should be probably swapping sides regularly. I think Fraser looks great down the left where he can actually whip crosses in. He doesn't have to cut back in on the from the right to have like shots and nullify that. The downside with that is Maxi's not going to cross the ball on the right-hand side with any great accuracy or conviction. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough one, but I'd love to see Bruno start his first game against Southampton just to give that midfield a bit of a rest, and there's some fresh legs in there, just that little bit of quality on the ball to retain some possession as well.
Yeah, Maxi scored the winner in the game just before lockdown at St Mary's, so he does have form against Southampton. You think about the opposition defenders and the opposition team, that they'd rather be playing against Murphy than against Maximan, wouldn't they? I think defenders don't want to be playing against that unpredictability. Although you do have to accept that the team's going to be a bit less structured. You have to kind of factor that in if you're going to play Maxi instead of Murphy. But if he's fit and he got a decent amount of minutes against Brighton, I don't see why he wouldn't be back in. Dimi, what are your thoughts on those 3 players potentially coming back in?
Yeah, 100% agree with Mark. That would have been my 3 changes as well. Obviously, we've already mentioned about our feelings on Kraft. I think Manquillo comes in. Bruno, for me, has to come in. I think Shelvey needs a rest. He really struggled yesterday for me to get around the pitch, and he wasn't. Obviously, we didn't have the ball, so you couldn't really see what he's there for. But when you can tell when we have a lot of possession and we're chasing, Shelvey's not the sort of player you want on the pitch. So I'd rest him, and then ASM I think would be prime for this game. It's again potentially Southampton might have more the ball than us, but we're going to need that X factor to create something on the break. And I think, like you said, Jack, he did score at St Mary, so he's got form there. So ASM comes in for me.
It'll be really exciting to see Bruno get a full 90 minutes, or at least to start the game. He's had a few sort of snippets here and there. Against Brentford, he had a decent half hour or so, and he just does look really good. He looks really confident and composed. So I just wonder whether he's going to have half an eye on well, he will, because he's diligent and prepared, whether he'll be thinking about the Chelsea game as well, or whether he thinks we've got more chance of picking something up against Southampton. So does he go all out for that game and then maybe potentially rest players for the Chelsea game ahead of the Everton game next week? What do you think about that, Mark?
I'm not sure how we'll sacrifice games intentionally. I don't think he's that sort of manager. I don't think he's got that sort of mindset. And you can see some of the results he's picked up as a manager when he was at Bournemouth, where he's beaten Chelsea with a Bournemouth side where everyone had kind of written them off. He's not a manager that's going to go into a game and go, oh, look, this is kind of just a free hit. If we get beat, we get beat. Yeah, but we'll focus on the next game. Yeah, it's this game. This is the most important game. I think he'll want to win against Southampton. He'll put out what he believes is his strongest side, and then he'll take the Chelsea game sort of when that becomes an issue.
Yeah, and it's a good position to be in, where you have actually got more than players that are in form that you can actually fit into the team as well. It was interesting. He name-checked Sean Longstaff the other day. He was talking about contract, and Sean Longstaff had his best game of the season against Leeds, and then he hasn't really had a look in since, and he's kind of fifth in the pecking order there. If Bruno's going to come in, then Dimi, who would you say drop out? Shelvey? Did you say that earlier?
Yeah. So I'd take Shelvey out. I even wouldn't be against potentially changing two of the midfielders if Willock seemed like he might need a rest as well. So if that's the case, we can probably bring in Longstaff, who should be champing at the bit for some time. So I think that's the obvious change. He's served his penance on the bench now. We're winning games, but it's time to unleash your 35 million superstar Brazilian midfielder. I think the time's now. So time to show us what he's got.
And I don't think Joe Linton actually gets tired, does he? So he'll be all right for the rest of the season.
He's a machine. He is an absolute machine.
He is a
machine. What's Cucurella too? How about Cucurella picking a fight with him? I mean, pretty sure he's fighting about 30 kilos outside his weight division.
Yeah,
he's probably not the right
out of his weight range.
Yeah, not the right bloke to pick a fight with, I reckon.
That's what Joe Linton does now, isn't it, as well, though? He gets into these, and it fires himself up. He gets into these running battles with players, and you can tell, it gets him fired up and it makes him play even better. So we haven't talked a lot about him again today because other players kind of shone a bit more, but he was just his usual self against Brighton. He was pretty much everywhere. He was probably top of the tackles stats again. So get Joe to Qatar in the World Cup. That's what we need. That's what needs to happen.
We need to get t-shirts made up.
We need to get t-shirts. All right then. Anything else to say then before we wrap up? What's your thought? It's a bit hard thinking about this because it's like Sunday night now, and we're not going to be watching the game for Friday morning. But what's your predictions for this one? I'll go with you first, Dimi.
2-1 winner. 2-1 win with Big Dan Burn to score the winner and jump into the Geordie faithful. I just want us to. I'm really desperate to win this game because after everything that Ralph said and complained about, Newcastle got the game postponed, blah blah blah. I just love to see us get the win and especially get a January signing to make the difference. That would be sensational.
Maybe with a Chris Wood assist or something. That would just be magic.
Brilliant. Matt Target to score a free kick as well.
Target used to play for them as well, didn't he? Yeah,
he did.
Mark, what's your prediction for this?
It's a tough one. I'm historically scared of going down to Southampton. I just remember us never having a very good record whenever we've gone there. But as you've pointed out in the graphic that we showed, the recent record's actually not that bad. So that's kind of filled me with a little bit more confidence than what I otherwise would have had going into this game. So I'm going to go for 2-1. I think we'll edge a win, but I can't see us keeping another clean sheet. So who's going to score it? I don't know. I would love it for like a Bruno through ball for Maxi to score the winner. But right now I'll just take anything as it comes. We're playing well. Bring on the next game.
I think these an away game like this might suit us better than a home game. I think the onus is going to be on them to attack, and then with those players we can break, and if we can just look after the ball a little bit better and keep hold of it, I think it could be a really good game between two quite evenly matched teams. I'm still too superstitious to predict a win, so I'm going to go for a 1-1, which wouldn't be a bad result. All right, then we'll wrap it up there. Look at the website, tuneunder.com. Follow us on Twitter at tununderpod. We're on Facebook and we're on YouTube. So please subscribe and engage. The watch along was really good yesterday. There was a lot of engagement, and that's what we love. So send your questions in, and we will be back for it'll be a review of the Southampton game and a preview of the Chelsea game, which I think we're going to probably have to do on Friday night, our time, because it's the only time we're going to be able to fit it in. So good luck to the boys doing that one. All right. Cheers, Mark.
Excellent. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Dimi.
See you, mate.
Have a good week. We'll see you soon.